My name is Lisa R. McGray. I am 33 years old and I work as a mechanical engineer for a manufacturing company in Ohio. My days are structured, predictable, and usually quiet. I rent a modest townhouse near my office and spend most evenings either at the gym or working on small design projects at home. Stability has always felt like clarity to me. Not glamorous, not loud, but reliable. My boyfriend was Adrien, 29. We had been together for a little over 3 years. We lived separately, but spent most nights at my place. He worked in event marketing and thrived on attention, noise, and constant social movement. Where I liked routine, he liked disruption. At the time, I believed that meant we balanced each other. Looking back, I think it meant we were tolerating opposite definitions of fulfillment. For most of our relationship, Adrien had a way of framing dissatisfaction as growth. If he was bored, it meant he was evolving. If he picked a fight, it meant I was not challenging him enough. He liked to remind me that he had options. At first, he said it playfully. Later, less playfully, he would mention men who had messaged him, networking events where people found more ambitious partners, couples online who were constantly traveling or launching startups. My job was stable, but not exciting. My townhouse was comfortable, but not impressive. My weekends were predictable. He compared us to curated lives on social media and called it inspiration. About 4 months before everything ended, he started saying we were in different seasons of life. I asked what that meant in practical terms. He never answered directly. Instead, he criticized small things, the way I meal prepped, the fact that I planned vacations 6 months in advance, the fact that I did not crave chaos. It was subtle at first, then it became consistent. The actual breakup happened on a Tuesday night in my kitchen. He was pacing while I was loading the dishwasher. He stopped mid-stride and said, "Maybe we should just stay friends." He said it like he was offering me an upgrade, like friendship was a consolation prize for not keeping up with his ambition. I dried my hands, looked at him, and said, "Okay." He blinked like he had misheard me. I did not argue. I did not ask for clarification. I did not try to negotiate terms. I simply asked when he planned to pick up the rest of his things. That was the moment his tone shifted. When I asked when he planned to pick up the rest of his things, he stopped pacing and stared at me like I had insulted him. "You're not even going to fight for me," he said. I told him I do not fight for someone who just opted out. If he wanted to leave, that was his decision. I was not going to stand in the doorway and block it. That made him angry. Adrien did not like clean exits. He preferred tension. He preferred scenes where he could feel wanted. Instead, he got logistics. He accused me of being cold, said my lack of reaction proved we were incompatible, said he needed passion, not a spreadsheet. The truth was simpler. When someone says maybe we should just stay friends, they are not asking for reassurance. They are testing leverage. I was not interested in negotiating for my own position in my own relationship. He gathered some clothes that night and left in a dramatic rush. The next morning, he texted asking if we could talk again when I had processed things. I responded that there was nothing to process. He said he wanted to explore who he was without the pressure of commitment. I told him I hoped he figured that out. That weekend, I boxed up the rest of his belongings. Nothing symbolic, just practical. Shoes, a few kitchen items he had bought, framed photos he liked more than I did. I left the boxes at his sister's apartment after confirming by text that it was acceptable. 2 weeks later, I accepted an engineering position in Nevada. That part was not impulsive. I had been interviewing quietly for months. The company specialized in renewable energy systems, and the role came with a significant salary increase and leadership responsibility. I had not mentioned it to Adrien because I had not been sure I would take it. When he found out through a mutual friend, he called immediately. "So you were planning to leave anyway," he said. "No," I replied. "I was planning for options." There was a long silence on the line. He said he thought I would chase him. He assumed the breakup would force me to prove how much I wanted him. Instead, I was packing. The week before I left for Nevada, his calls increased. At first, it was casual. He wanted to grab coffee before I moved. He said it would be mature to have closure. I told him I did not need closure. The relationship had ended clearly enough. Then the tone shifted. He started sending late-night texts about memories, photos from trips, inside jokes. He reminded me of things I had done for him, framed as proof that we were special. It felt less like nostalgia and more like inventory. One night, he showed up at my townhouse unannounced. He knocked like he still lived there. I opened the door because I was expecting a package delivery. He stepped inside without asking and looked around like he was inspecting something he had misplaced. "So this is it," he said. "You're really leaving?" "Yes." "You're not even a little sad?" "I'm disappointed," I told him, "but I'm not confused. There's a difference." He rolled his eyes and said I was emotionally robotic. He asked if I was seeing someone already. I said no. He asked if there was someone in Nevada. I said no again. Then he said something that clarified everything. "I thought if I pulled back, you'd finally step up." That was the first honest sentence he had spoken in weeks. I told him I do not respond to ultimatums or tests. If someone wants to be with me, they can say that directly. I am not interested in decoding threats. He stood there waiting for me to change my mind. I did not. When he left, I locked the door and blocked his number. Not out of anger, out of structure. I was moving across the country. I did not need commentary during the transition. The next morning, he tried calling from a different number. I blocked that one too. 2 days later, I was on a one-way flight to Reno with 2 suitcases, a signed contract, and no pending conversations. For the first time in months, everything felt quiet. Reno was not glamorous, but it was clean and efficient. The company relocated me with a modest package, so I moved into a newer apartment complex about 15 minutes from the plant. Mountains in the distance, dry air, wide roads. It felt open in a way Ohio never had. The silence there was not heavy. It was expansive. The new role was demanding in a way I appreciated. I was managing a small team for the first time, overseeing system integration on large-scale renewable projects. My days were long, but structured. There was no emotional guessing game at work. Problems had causes. Causes had fixes. If something malfunctioned, you traced it. You did not reinterpret it until it sounded romantic. The first month passed without drama. Adrien tried once more through email. A short message asking if we could talk. I did not respond. I archived it and adjusted my filters, so anything from his address skipped my inbox entirely. Blocking him was not theatrical. It was practical. I was not interested in reopening negotiations that had already been settled. Around week 6, a mutual friend texted me, asking if Adrien and I were secretly working things out. Apparently, he had been telling people we were just taking space while I got established in Nevada. That surprised me. I replied with a simple, "No, we broke up. I moved. That's it." The friend sent back a screenshot from Adrien's social media. It was a vague caption about sometimes losing something stable because you needed to chase something extraordinary. The comments were full of people encouraging him to follow his heart. I did not engage. I muted the friend's thread after clarifying the facts. That was the first time I understood what he was doing. He was not reaching for me. He was rewriting the story so he would not look like the one who had opted out. Over the next few months, my life became routine again. I joined a local climbing gym. I started hiking on weekends. I met colleagues outside of work who had nothing to do with my past. There was something freeing about being known without context. No one here knew Adrien. No one knew the kitchen conversation. They just knew me as the new engineer who asked direct questions and finished projects on time. About 5 months in, I met Daniel at a volunteer event the company sponsored. He was 34, a civil engineer for the city, and he spoke in a way that was direct without being sharp. Our first conversation lasted almost 2 hours. No performance, no testing, just 2 adults comparing notes on career paths and bad coffee. When I asked him out the following week, he said yes without theatrics. There was something steady about him that I had not realized I was missing. That was when Adrien started resurfacing indirectly. He could not call me. He could not email me. He could not message me. There was no direct channel left, so he began using other people. The first message came through my younger brother. He texted one evening asking if Adrien and I were speaking again, because Adrien had reached out to him on Instagram. Apparently, Adrien said he wanted to clear the air and make sure there were no hard feelings. He told my brother that I had shut him out without warning, and that he was confused by how quickly I moved on. I told my brother the facts. Adrien suggested staying friends. I agreed. I accepted a job that had been in motion for months. I blocked him because he kept reframing the breakup as temporary. There was nothing confusing about that sequence. 2 weeks later, one of our old mutual friends called me. He sounded uncomfortable. Adrien had been at a group dinner and mentioned that we were still in contact privately. He implied that I was the one keeping things quiet because of the new job. That annoyed me more than the breakup itself. I clarified directly. We have 0 contact. I blocked him. There is nothing to hide. The friend paused and said Adrien seemed convinced that I would eventually circle back once the excitement of Nevada wore off. That was the first time I understood his assumption clearly. He thought this was temporary. He believed distance would create nostalgia. He assumed I would compare everyone new to him in return. Meanwhile, Daniel and I were building something simple and unforced. Daniel knew about Adrien in broad terms. I told him my last relationship ended because of misaligned expectations and testing behavior. I did not dramatize it. I did not villainize Adrien. I just stated facts. Daniel nodded and said he preferred direct communication over games. That sentence alone felt like oxygen. Around month 8 in Nevada, Adrien escalated. He contacted my mother. My mother does not call casually. If she calls instead of texting, it usually means something is off. She phoned me on a Sunday afternoon while I was meal prepping for the week. She asked gently if Adrien and I had unresolved issues. I said no. She hesitated and then explained that Adrien had sent her a long message on Facebook. According to her, the message was polite but loaded. Adrien said he was worried about me. He said I had shut down emotionally and isolated myself in Nevada. He framed the move as impulsive and hinted that I was making decisions out of hurt pride. That part almost impressed me. It was strategic. He could not reach me directly, so he tried to create doubt around me. If my family questioned my judgment, maybe I would feel pressure to explain myself. Maybe I would reopen contact just to manage the narrative. I told my mom the timeline calmly. Adrien suggested staying friends. I agreed. I accepted a job that had been progressing for months. I blocked him because he kept reframing the breakup as temporary. There was no hidden chapter, no secret fight, just a clear sentence followed by a clear action. My mother listened quietly and then said something simple. "You sound fine." That was the end of it. Later that week, another mutual friend reached out. Adrien had apparently told a small group that my new relationship was a rebound and that I had always been afraid of deeper commitment. He implied that I left because I was intimidated by his ambition. It was revisionist but predictable. If he could not control my response, he could at least control the story. Meanwhile, Daniel and I were steady. We were not posting vague captions. We were not triangulating friends. We were planning a weekend trip to Lake Tahoe and arguing about which hiking trail was less crowded. One evening, Daniel asked me directly if Adrien would be a problem. I told him no. Not because Adrien would not try, but because I would not participate. That distinction mattered. The more Adrien tried to reach me through side doors, the clearer something became. He did not regret the breakup in the way I would define regret. He regretted losing leverage. He regretted losing the assumption that I would come back. He still believed that eventually I would miss him enough to reopen the door. He was wrong. Around month 11 in Nevada, everything Adrien had hoped for started collapsing, and that was when he ran out of intermediaries. I did not hear directly from Adrien when things started falling apart. I heard it the same way I had heard everything else since I blocked him, through other people. One of our old mutual friends called me late on a Thursday night, not to stir drama. He sounded tired. He told me Adrien had quit his job 3 months earlier. Apparently, he thought he had a better offer lined up with a startup that promised travel and higher pay. That offer never materialized the way he expected. The startup downsized. His role was cut before it stabilized. At the same time, the woman he had started seeing shortly after I moved out of Ohio had ended things. From what I was told, she did not appreciate being compared to me during arguments. That part was almost ironic. The friend said Adrien had been talking a lot about regret, not in a reflective way, more like he was narrating a comeback story. He told people he let something solid slip because he wanted fireworks. He said he finally understood the value of stability. Then came the part that mattered. He had asked for my new address. The friend did not give it to him. I thanked him for that and kept the conversation short. That weekend, Daniel and I were assembling a bookshelf in my living room. Nothing dramatic, just instructions, misplaced screws, and mild frustration over an uneven shelf. While we were working, my building manager knocked on my door. There was someone in the lobby asking for me. He said the person claimed to be an old friend who was in town unexpectedly. I already knew. I had not posted my address publicly. I had not shared it widely. But it was not impossible to feign if someone was determined. Daniel looked at me calmly and asked if I wanted him to leave. I said no. There was nothing secret about my life. Then I went downstairs. Adrien was standing near the mailboxes with a suitcase beside him. He smiled like this was a coincidence. Seeing him there felt less emotional than I expected. He looked thinner, not fragile, just worn down. The The suitcase beside him was small, like he had packed in a rush but tried to make it look intentional. He said he was in town for a marketing conference in Reno. That part was plausible. Then he added that he thought he would stop by and surprise me since he was already here. I asked how he got my address. He shrugged. I asked around. People talk. That answer told me enough. He stepped a little closer and lowered his voice. I've been thinking a lot. I made a mistake. I did not interrupt him. I let him talk. He said he had been chasing things that looked exciting but were not stable. He said he realized too late that stability is rare. He said he missed how calm he felt around me, how safe. Then he said the part he probably rehearsed. I thought you would fight for me. There it was again. I told him that when someone says maybe we should just stay friends, I believe them. I do not audition for my own relationship. He glanced past me toward the elevator, then back at me. Are you seeing someone? Yes. His jaw tightened slightly. Serious? Yes. He nodded like he expected that answer but did not like it. Then he shifted tactics. He said people grow. He said we were young and stupid. He said we could start fresh in Nevada. He even said he would consider relocating permanently if that was what it took. That was the first time he framed himself as the one willing to move. I told him my life here was not an open slot waiting to be refilled. He looked up at my apartment balcony and asked if he could at least come upstairs to talk properly. No. He stood there for a few seconds calculating. Then he asked where he was supposed to go. That was when I realized he had not just come to visit. He had not booked a hotel. I asked him directly where he was staying. He hesitated just long enough to confirm what I already suspected. He said he thought we could talk first and then figure it out. That told me he was operating on assumption again, the same assumption that had driven the breakup, that I would absorb the uncertainty and make it comfortable for him. I told him he needed to book a room. There were multiple hotels within walking distance. I even pointed one out across the street. He looked genuinely offended. So that's it? You're not even going to hear me out upstairs? I've heard you, I said. You miss stability. You miscalculated. You want to reset. None of that changes the decision. He asked if this was because of the new guy. No, this is because when you left, you meant it. I simply agreed. For a moment, his composure cracked. He said everything he had hoped for after leaving me had fallen apart. The job did not pan out. The relationship he jumped into was unreliable. His friends were busy chasing their own chaos. He said he finally understood what consistency looked like. I told him consistency is not something you circle back to when experiments fail. He accused me of being rigid, of having no forgiveness. That part was almost ironic. I had not been angry. I had not attacked him publicly. I had not tried to sabotage anything in his life. I had simply moved forward. He looked toward the entrance like he was considering forcing his way past me. I stepped back slightly and kept my tone even. You cannot come upstairs. This is not a discussion about access. It is about boundaries. He asked if I still loved him. I care about the time we had, I said. That's different from wanting it back. There was a long silence in the lobby. Then he picked up his suitcase. For a second, I thought he was going to leave quietly. Instead, he said something softer. You were supposed to come back. That was the clearest summary of his entire plan. He thought distance would scare me. He thought independence would exhaust me. He thought I would compare everyone to him and return out of nostalgia. I did not respond. I held the door open for him to step outside. He stepped outside and the lobby door closed between us. For a moment, he stood there on the sidewalk, suitcase in hand, looking smaller than I remembered. Not physically, structurally. The confidence he used to carry like armor was gone. Through the glass, he said one last thing. I didn't think you would actually let me go. That was honest in a way nothing else had been. I stepped outside so he would not be talking to a door. Letting you go wasn't revenge, I said. It was alignment. You asked for distance. I respected it. I built something else with the space. He asked if I was really happy. Yes. Not because my life was dramatic or impressive, but because it was steady. Because the person I was with now did not test loyalty by threatening to withdraw it. Because my job, my home, my relationship all functioned without hidden clauses. He nodded slowly. The fight was gone. What remained was realization. He said he thought I would get bored. He thought Nevada would feel empty. He thought I would compare everyone to him and eventually miss the volatility. Peace doesn't feel empty once you recognize it, I said. He asked if there was any version of the future where we found our way back. No. Not angrily, not loudly, just clearly. A rideshare pulled up. He had finally booked it while we were talking. He lifted the suitcase into the trunk without asking for help. Before he got in, he looked at me one last time like he was searching for hesitation. There was none. I went back upstairs. Daniel was sitting on the couch with 2 mugs of tea. He did not interrogate me. He simply asked if everything was handled. "It is," I said. Later that night, I deleted the last shared cloud folder Adrien and I had once used for travel photos. Not out of spite, out of completion. Some people leave expecting pursuit. When pursuit does not come, they call it coldness. He said, "Maybe we should just stay friends." I said, "Okay," and I meant it.